Captain Jun Kim stood on the bridge of the UES Underdog, his back straight and his face calm. Inside, his stomach twisted with both pride and anger. This ship, his ship, was humanity's newest warship. It was also the joke of the Galactic Confederation. "Sir, we're getting another message from the Ardaxian fleet," said Lieutenant Dopark. His voice was tight. "They want to know if our peculiar vessel is experiencing technical problems. They're offering to send help." June took a deep breath. "Tell them the Underdog is functioning perfectly. We're just running final tests on our systems." "Yes, sir." Des' fingers moved quickly over his console. "They've responded. They say they're sending an inspection team anyway." He looked up, anger flashing in his eyes. "Sir, we don't have to let them on board. We have rights as Confederation members." "Junior members," Jun corrected. "Protected species status. And yes, we do have to let them on board." He straightened his uniform. "Tell them they're welcome. I'll meet them in Docking Bay 3. As Jun walked through the corridors of his ship, he let his hand trail along the wall. The metal was cool under his fingers. The Underdog was small compared to other Confederation warships. It was only 300 meters long, a quarter the size of the smallest Ardaxian cruiser. Its shape was blocky and uneven, nothing like the sleek, curved ships of the more advanced species. The Underdog also lacked the glowing energy shields that other ships had. Instead, it had thick layers of composite armor. The aliens thought this was primitive. They didn't understand. Jun reached the docking bay just as the Ardaxian shuttle landed. The door opened, and 5 tall, blue-skinned aliens stepped out. Their commander, Vex, stood at least 2 heads taller than Jun. "Captain Kim," Vex said, not bothering to bow or shake hands. "We are here to conduct a safety inspection of your vessel. The Confederation has concerns about its unusual design." "Of course," Jun said, forcing a smile. "The Underdog may look strange to you, but I assure you it meets all Confederation safety standards." Vex made a sound that might have been a laugh. "We shall see." The inspection was exactly what Jun expected. An excuse for the Ardaxians to mock humanity's efforts. They walked through engineering, weapons control, life support, and the bridge. At each stop, they made notes and exchanged looks. "Your propulsion system is remarkably inefficient," Vex said in engineering. "You're using chemical rockets as backup." Chief Engineer Sun nodded. "Yes, they're reliable." "They're ancient," another Ardaxian said. "My species abandoned such technology 5,000 years ago." In the weapons bay, they were even less impressed. "Railguns," Vex said, staring at the massive electromagnetic launchers. "You're using physical projectiles, not energy weapons." "Kinetic energy never fails," Weapons Officer Suyun said quietly. "Our railguns can accelerate a 20-kilogram tungsten rod to 10% of light speed." The Ardaxians exchanged amused glances. "Against modern shields, you might as well be throwing rocks," Vex said. By the time they reached the bridge, Jun's patience was wearing thin. "Captain," Vex said, looking around at the control stations, "I must be honest. This vessel would not survive 5 minutes in a real battle. Your weapons are outdated. Your defenses are inadequate. Even your life support systems are basic." "The Underdog was built for function, not beauty," Jun replied. "Humans have always valued practical solutions." "There's practical, and then there's primitive," Vex said. "The Confederation appreciates Earth's enthusiasm, but perhaps in another century, you'll be ready to contribute meaningfully to our defense forces." Jun felt his face grow hot, but before he could respond, the ship's communication system beeped. "Captain Kim, incoming transmission from Earth Command," Day announced. "Admiral Taho Ryu wishes to speak with you." "Put him through," Jun said, grateful for the interruption. The main screen lit up, showing the weathered face of Admiral Taho, the man who had designed the Underdog and chosen Jun to command it. "Captain Kim," Taho said, his voice steady, I see our Ardaxian friends are paying you a visit. His eyes moved to Vex. Commander, how do you find our little warship? Vex straightened. Admiral Ryu, with all due respect, I'm not sure warship is the correct term. This vessel was built exactly to my specifications, Tahoe interrupted. Captain Kim, is everything functioning properly? Yes, Admiral, Jones said. All systems are operating within normal parameters. Excellent. The Underdog will begin its patrol mission tomorrow as scheduled. Tahoe looked back at Vex. Commander, please inform your superiors that Earth appreciates their concerns, but we stand by our design choices. After the transmission ended, Vex seemed slightly less confident. You're actually going to take this ship on patrol along the Kravak border. Those are our orders, Jones said. The Underdog may not be what you're used to, but it's more capable than you think. Vex studied him for a moment. For your sake, Captain, I hope you're right. The Kravak are not known for their mercy. He gestured to his team. We've seen enough. We'll file our report with the Confederation Council. As the Ardaxians left, Jun felt a weight settle on his shoulders. He knew what their report would say. The Underdog would be officially labeled as inadequate, perhaps even dangerous. Earth would face more restrictions, more guidance from the advanced species. They don't get it, do they? Daz said quietly after the Ardaxian shuttle had departed. No, Jun replied. They don't. And that's our advantage. Later that evening, Jun sat in his quarters, reviewing the ship's final readiness reports. There was a knock at his door. Enter, he called. Su Yun stepped in, holding a tablet. Final weapons checks are complete, Captain. All railgun systems are operational. Point defense network is at 100%. Thank you, Lieutenant, Jun said. What about the special modifications? Su's face brightened slightly. The adaptive armor is responding perfectly to simulations, and the electromagnetic countermeasures are fully functional, though we won't know their true effectiveness until they're tested in combat. Jun nodded. These were the innovations that the Ardaxians had missed, or dismissed. The special composites in the Underdog's armor that could change properties under stress. The unique configuration of its railguns that made them far more powerful than standard models. The electromagnetic systems designed to disrupt enemy targeting. The crew's morale, he asked. Su hesitated. Honestly, sir, it took a hit today. No one likes being laughed at. I know. Jun gestured for her to sit. When I was a child, my grandfather told me stories about Korean history, about how many times larger powers underestimated us. He said that sometimes being underestimated is your greatest weapon. He smiled slightly. Admiral Tahoe told me something similar when he chose me for this command. Let them laugh, he said. They don't understand what we've built. Do you think we'll have a chance to prove ourselves, sir? Jun looked at the star chart displayed on his wall, at the blinking red line that marked the border with Kravak space. Sooner than anyone expects, Lieutenant. The Kravak have been testing that border for months now. Intelligence says they've developed something new, something that has the Confederation worried. He turned back to Su. And when that happens, they'll need ships that can fight in ways the Kravak don't expect. Su smiled for the first time that day. Ships like the Underdog. Exactly. Jun stood up. Get some rest, Lieutenant. Tomorrow we begin our patrol. After Su left, Jun walked to the small viewport in his quarters. Beyond the thick glass, stars shone against the black of space. Somewhere out there, the Kravak were planning their next move. And the Confederation, for all its advanced technology, was not ready. But humanity had spent its entire history fighting wars against itself. They knew about adaptation, about finding weaknesses, about using an enemy's confidence against them. The Underdog might look like a joke to the Ardaxians, but Jun knew better. It was a weapon designed by people who understood that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one you're laughing at. 3 months passed. The UES Underdog patrolled the edge of Confederation space without incident. Each day, Captain Jum Kim filed reports that said the same thing. No contact with enemy forces. All systems normal. But on the 93rd day, everything changed. Jun was in the ship's mess hall, eating breakfast with Chief Engineer Sun, when the alarm sounded. The sharp, high-pitched tone made them both freeze for a second before jumping to their feet. Captain to the bridge. Lieutenant Dez's voice came over the speakers. Emergency situation. Jun and Sun ran through the corridors. Crew members moved quickly to their stations as red warning lights flashed along the walls. When they reached the bridge, Dai was standing at the communication console, his face pale. "Report," Jun said, sliding into his command chair. "Sir, we're receiving distress calls from multiple Confederation outposts along the border," Daz said. "The Kravak have launched a major attack." "Show me," Jun ordered. The main screen lit up with a map of the border region. Red dots showed the locations under attack. There were at least 12 of them. "This isn't a raid," Weapons Officer Su said quietly. "This is an invasion." "The nearest outpost is Proxima Station," Day reported. "They're under heavy fire from a Kravak battle group." Jun studied the map. Proxima Station was only 30 minutes away at maximum speed. Any other Confederation ships responding? "The Ardaxian cruiser dominance is 18 hours out," Daz said. "They're ordering all ships in the sector to hold position and wait for reinforcements." Jun frowned. In 18 hours, Proxima Station would be destroyed. It had a crew of over 300, plus civilian researchers. "Set course for Proxima Station, maximum speed," he ordered. Day looked up, surprised. "Sir, the Ardaxians specifically ordered." "I heard the order, Lieutenant," Jun said calmly. "But Proxima won't last 18 hours. We're the only ship close enough to help." "Yes, sir." Day turned to his console. Navigator Han plotted the course, and the Underdog's engines roared to life. The ship accelerated quickly, its blocky shape cutting through space toward the endangered station. "Captain," Sun said quietly, "the Underdog has never been in real combat." "The simulations were successful," Jun finished for him. "Our weapons work. Our defenses work. Now we find out if they work well enough." 28 minutes later, they dropped out of FTL near Proxima Station. The scene that greeted them was worse than Jun had feared. The station, a large spinning ring around a central hub, was heavily damaged. Fires burned in several sections, and debris floated nearby. Around it, 5 Kravak warships fired continuously. Their weapons, bright green energy beams, sliced through the station's shields like they weren't even there. "Status of the station?" Jun asked. "Their shields are failing," Su reported. "Life support is critical in most sections. They're evacuating to the central hub. Open a channel to the station." A moment later, a woman's face appeared on screen. Station Commander Yuna Lee. Her forehead was bleeding, and smoke filled the room behind her. "Captain Kim," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "I never thought I'd be so happy to see that ugly ship of yours." Jun allowed himself a small smile. "We're here to help, Commander. What happened?" "The Kravak came out of nowhere," Yuna said. 5 warships. Their weapons. They've changed. Our shields can't stop them. The energy beams pass right through like our shields aren't even there." Jun exchanged a look with Su. This was bad news. All Confederation defenses relied on energy shields. "We've lost 60 people already," Yuna continued. "We're moving everyone to the central hub, but we can't hold out much longer. The Ardaxians say help is coming, but..." "We're not waiting for the Ardaxians," Jun interrupted. "Prepare your evacuation shuttles. We'll create a distraction and cover your escape." Yuna's eyes widened. "Captain, there are 5 Kravak warships out there. Your ship is coming to get you," Jun said firmly. "Be ready to move in 10 minutes." After the communication ended, the bridge was silent for a moment. "Can we really take on 5 Kravak ships?" Sun asked. June turned to Sue. What do we know about these new Kravak weapons? Based on the sensor readings, they're using a modified version of standard energy weapons, she said. But they're operating at a frequency that passes through Confederation shields. And our defenses. Sue smiled slightly. We don't use standard shields, Captain. We have armor. June nodded. Exactly. And our railguns don't care about fancy shield frequencies. He turned to the entire bridge crew. Listen carefully. We're going to hit them hard and fast. Target their weapons systems first, then engines. We need to keep them busy while the station evacuates. He pressed a button on his chair. All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill. Prepare for combat. Throughout the ship, crew members moved to their positions. In engineering, Sun and his team prepared the engines for rapid maneuvers. In the weapons bay, the massive railguns were loaded and charged. Captain, Dad said, the Kravak have spotted us. They're sending a message. The main screen showed a Kravak commander. The alien looked like a large insect with a hard exoskeleton and multiple eyes. Human vessel, the Kravak said, its voice translated by the computer. Leave this area immediately or be destroyed. This conflict does not concern you. I'm Captain Jun Kim of the UES Underdog, Jun replied. You are attacking a Confederation outpost. As members of the Confederation, we are responding to their distress call. Cease your attack and withdraw. The Kravak made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. Your primitive vessel poses no threat to us, human. We have defeated the strongest shields in the Confederation. Your ship will burn. The communication cut off. Charming fellow, Jun said. He turned to Navigator Han. Attack pattern Alpha. Take us in. The Underdog accelerated toward the Kravak ships. Two of them immediately broke off their attack on the station and moved to intercept the human vessel. They're targeting us, Sue reported. Energy weapons charging. Evasive maneuvers, Jun ordered. Prepare to return fire. The Underdog twisted and turned, its engines straining as Han pushed them to their limits. Green energy beams lanced out from the Kravak ships. Some missed. Others hit the Underdog's armor, scorching the outer layers but not penetrating. Damage report, Jun called out as the ship shuddered. Armor holding at 92% integrity, Sun reported from engineering. Their weapons are powerful, but our composite layers are absorbing most of the energy. Weapons range achieved, Sue announced. Railguns 1 through 4 ready to fire. Jun leaned forward in his chair. Target the lead ship's main weapon banks. Fire. The Underdog shook as 4 railguns fired simultaneously. 4 tungsten rods, each weighing 20 kilograms, shot toward the Kravak ship at incredible speed. There was no beam of light, no visible projectile, just the sudden, catastrophic impact as the rods punched through the Kravak ship's hull. On the screen, they watched as explosions rippled across the enemy vessel. Its weapons went dark, and it began to drift. The bridge crew cheered, but Jun remained focused. Target the second ship. Fire. Again, the railguns fired. Again, a Kravak ship was heavily damaged. The remaining 3 ships stopped their attack on the station and turned toward the Underdog. They're all coming for us now, Daz said, a hint of fear in his voice. Good, Jun replied. That's exactly what we want. Hail the station. Commander Yuna appeared on screen again. Captain, I don't know what you're doing, but they've stopped shooting at us. Launch your evacuation shuttles now, Jun ordered. We'll keep them busy. As the station's shuttles began to launch, the 3 remaining Kravak ships surrounded the Underdog, their weapons firing continuously. The human ship twisted and turned, taking hits but returning fire. Its armor, designed by Admiral Tayo with lessons learned from centuries of human warfare, held together even as it was scorched and pitted. Armor down to 70%. Sun reported. We can't take this forever, Captain. We don't need forever, Jun said. Just long enough. Status of the evacuation. First shuttles are away, Day reported. 8 minutes until all personnel are clear. Then we hold for 8 minutes, June said. Continuous fire on all targets. Don't let them go back to the station. For the next 8 minutes, the underdog fought like a cornered animal. Its railguns fired again and again, damaging all 3 Kravik ships. But it took damage too. By the time Day reported that all shuttles were clear, the underdog's armor was at 41% integrity, and one of its 4 railguns was offline. Plot a course out of here, June ordered. Maximum speed. The underdog turned and accelerated away from the battle, the damaged Kravik ships unable to pursue effectively. As they escaped into FTL, the bridge crew finally relaxed. Some laughed in relief. Others just slumped in their chairs, exhausted. Damage control teams to all affected sections, June ordered. I want a full report in 1 hour. He turned to Da. Send a message to Confederation Command. Tell them what happened here. Tell them about the Kravik's new weapons, and about how our primitive ship was able to fight back. Day grinned as he prepared the message. They won't be laughing at us now, will they, sir? June looked at the tactical display, at the 5 damaged Kravik ships they had left behind, and at the hundreds of life signs safely aboard the evacuation shuttles. No, Lieutenant, he said quietly. I don't think they will. 2 weeks after the battle at Proxima Station, the UES Underdog docked at Earth Central Station. As the ship connected to the station, Captain Jum Kim stood by the main airlock, waiting for the doors to open. He was tired. His crew was tired. The Underdog had taken heavy damage during their escape from the Kravik ships. The airlock door slid open, and Admiral Tahoe Ryu stood on the other side. His weathered face broke into a rare smile when he saw June. Captain Kim, he said, extending his hand. Well done. June shook the Admiral's hand. Thank you, sir, but we were lucky. Luck had nothing to do with it, Tahoe said firmly. You saved 287 lives at Proxima Station. You damaged 5 Kravik warships with a vessel 1/4 their size. That's not luck. That's exactly what the Underdog was designed to do. They walked together through the station corridors. Crew members and station personnel stopped and stared as they passed. Some nodded respectfully. Others broke into smiles or even applauded. They'd been watching the news reports, Tahoe explained. You're quite famous now. The warship they called a joke. That's what the media is calling the Underdog. And what are the Ardaxians calling it? June asked. Tahoe's smile faded. That's why I came to meet you personally. The Confederation Council is meeting in 1 hour. They want you there. Me? Why? Because the situation is worse than anyone realized, Tahoe said grimly. The Kravik have broken through in 6 more sectors. Their new weapons technology is making Confederation shields useless. And you're the only captain who has successfully fought them. An hour later, June stood beside Admiral Tahoe in the Earth Delegation section of the Confederation Council chamber. The room was large and circular, with sections for each member species. The Ardaxians, as the most powerful members, had the largest section directly opposite the main doors. Commander Vex was there, sitting among the Ardaxian military leaders. When he saw June, his blue face showed no emotion, but his eyes narrowed slightly. This emergency session of the Confederation Council will now begin, announced the Council President, an elderly Ardaxian with pale blue skin. Our first order of business is the Kravik invasion. General Mazek will present the current situation. A tall Ardaxian in a heavily decorated uniform stepped to the center of the chamber. A holographic map appeared above him, showing Confederation space. Large red areas marked Kravik-controlled territories. The situation is critical, General Mazek said. In the past 2 weeks, the Kravik have captured 18 outposts and destroyed 27 Confederation vessels. Their new shield-penetrating weapons have rendered our defenses ineffective. Our scientists are working on countermeasures, but it will take time. Time we do not have. Murmurs spread through the chamber. June looked around and saw fear on many faces. "What about the Proxima incident?" asked a representative from one of the smaller species. "We heard a human vessel successfully engage multiple Kravik ships." All eyes turned to the Earth section. Admiral Tahoe nodded to June, who stepped forward. "Captain Jun Kim of the UES Underdog," he said, introducing himself. "Yes, we engaged 5 Kravik warships at Proxima Station. We damaged all 5 and covered the evacuation of station personnel." "And how did you manage this when our advanced vessels could not?" General Mezek asked, his tone skeptical. "The Underdog doesn't use energy shields," Jun explained. "We use composite armor that absorbs and disperses energy. The Kravik weapons were designed to pass through shields, not to penetrate physical armor. And our weapons are railguns, physical projectiles, not energy beams. They're not affected by the Kravik's defensive systems." Commander Vex leaned forward. "You're suggesting that your primitive technology is superior to ours." "Not superior," Jones said carefully. "Different. And sometimes different is what you need when facing a new threat." The council chamber grew quiet as everyone considered this. "How many ships like the Underdog does Earth have?" The council president asked Admiral Tahoe. "Just the one," Tahoe replied. "It's a prototype, but we could build more, given time and resources." "We don't have time," General Mezek said sharply. "The Kravik fleet is gathering near the Ta City system. Intelligence suggests they plan to attack in force within 3 days. If Ta City falls, they will have a direct path to the core worlds." The council president looked grave. "We are marshaling all available ships to defend Ta City. The combined fleet will depart in 24 hours. He looked directly at Admiral Tahoe. "Will the Underdog join this fleet?" Before Tahoe could answer, Jum stepped forward. "The Underdog needs repairs. We took heavy damage at Proxima." "We can complete emergency repairs in 12 hours, Tahoe said. "The Underdog will be ready." After the council meeting, Jum and Tahoe walked quickly back to the docking area. 12 hours, Jum said. "Sir, with respect, some of our systems need complete rebuilding. One railgun is completely destroyed. Our armor needs replacing in at least 6 sections." "I know," Tahoe said. "I've already ordered all available technicians to begin work. We'll focus on the essential systems. The armor and the damaged sections will be reinforced as best we can." He stopped and turned to June. "This is bigger than one ship, Captain. The Confederation is facing its greatest threat in a century. If Ta City falls, billions of lives will be at risk." June nodded. "I understand, sir. We'll be ready." 10 hours later, June walked through the Underdog, checking on the repairs. Workers moved everywhere, welding, replacing components, and running tests. In engineering, Chief Engineer Sun supervised the work on the ship's power systems. "Will we make it?" June asked him. Sun wiped sweat from his forehead. "It won't be pretty, Captain, but she'll fly. 3 railguns operational. Armor patched. Engines at 92% efficiency." "Good enough," June said. "Get some rest before we depart." Next, he went to the weapons bay, where Sue was testing the railguns. "How's it looking?" he asked. Sue didn't look up from her console. "Railguns 1, 2, and 4 are operational. 3 is still being rebuilt. We won't have it for this mission." She finally looked at him, her eyes tired but determined. "We've loaded all our tungsten penetrators, total of 64 shots." "That will have to be enough," Jum said. Finally, he visited the bridge, where Lieutenant Dai and Navigator Han were preparing for departure. "All navigation systems are green," Han reported. "Course to Ta City is plotted. Communications are fully operational," Dai added. "We're receiving updates from the Confederation fleet. 47 vessels will rendezvous at Ta City. The Ardaxian dreadnought Supremacy will serve as fleet command." "Vex's ship?" Joan asked. Day nodded. "Yes, sir. Commander Vex has been promoted to fleet commander for this mission." June wasn't surprised. Despite Vex's dismissive attitude toward the underdog, he was a capable officer. 12 hours after docking, the underdog departed Earth Central Station. Its hull still showed signs of battle damage, with new armor plates covering the worst areas. As they moved away from Earth, a message came through from Admiral Tao. "Good hunting, Captain Kim," the Admiral said. "Remember what I told you about the underdog? It wasn't built to be pretty. It was built to fight in ways the enemy doesn't expect." "We'll remember, sir," Jun promised. The journey to Ta City took 18 hours. As they approached, sensors detected the gathering Confederation fleet. Ships of all sizes from various species formed a defensive formation near the system's fourth planet. "We're being hailed by the Supremacy," Day reported. Commander Vex appeared on screen. His expression was serious, with none of the condescension he had shown during his inspection of the underdog. "Captain Kim," he said, "the underdog is assigned to Defensive Group 3, Section B. Your orders are to hold position and engage only when the main fleet advances." Jun frowned. Section B was the rear guard, far from the main battle line. "Commander," he said, with respect, "the underdog would be more effective in a forward position. Our weapons and defenses are proven against the Kravik." "In one small engagement," Vex replied. "This will be a fleet battle, Captain. Follow your orders." The communication ended. Jun looked at his bridge crew. They all showed the same disappointment he felt. "He's keeping us in the back," Sue said angrily. "After what we did at Proxima." "He's following standard tactics," Jun said, "putting the largest, most powerful ships at the front. It would make sense if the Kravik were using standard weapons." "But they're not," Day said. "No, they're not." Jun studied the tactical display, showing the fleet formation. "Take us to our assigned position. For now, we follow orders." 6 hours later, long-range sensors detected the Kravik fleet entering the system. Everyone on the bridge of the underdog watched the main screen as the enemy ships appeared. There were over 70 of them, led by a massive vessel nearly twice the size of the Ardaxian dreadnought. "That's their command ship," Jun said quietly. "The whole Kravik fleet." Vex's voice came over the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, battle positions. Prepare to engage on my mark." As the two fleets moved toward each other, Jun had a sinking feeling in his stomach. The Confederation ships were forming a traditional battle line. Shields at maximum power, energy weapons charged. They were fighting the way they always had. But the Kravik weren't using traditional weapons. "Captain," Day said suddenly, "look at the Kravik formation. They're concentrating their forces against the center of our line, where the Ardaxian ships are." Jun saw it too. The Kravik knew exactly where to hit the Confederation fleet hardest. "Sir," Sue said, her voice urgent, "should we warn Commander Vex?" Jun hesitated. Then he pressed the communication button. "Underdog to Supremacy. We've analyzed the Kravik approach. They're targeting your position specifically. Suggest you adjust formation immediately." There was a long pause before Vex replied. "Captain Kim, maintain your position and communications discipline. We are aware of the enemy's movements." The channel closed. Jun looked at his crew. He's not going to listen. "Then what do we do?" Han asked. Jun stared at the tactical display for a long moment. Then he straightened in his chair. "Navigator Han, plot a new course. Take us out of formation. We're moving to intercept the Kravik command ship." "Sir." Han looked shocked. "That's a direct violation of orders." "Yes, it is," Jun agreed. "And it might be the only way to save this fleet." "Captain, the Supremacy is hailing us," Lieutenant Daz said, his voice tense as the underdog broke formation. "Commander Vex is demanding we return to our assigned position." "Tell him we're experiencing navigation system errors," Jun replied calmly, and then accidentally cut the transmission. Day's mouth twitched in a small smile as he followed the order. The underdog accelerated, its engines pushing to maximum power as it moved away from its assigned position in the rear guard. On the main screen, The two fleets were closing rapidly. The Kravak ships had formed an arrow-shaped formation, pointing directly at the center of the Confederation line. "Time to intercept the Kravak command ship," Jun asked. 4 minutes at current speed, Navigator Han answered. "But sir, we'll be passing directly through the main battle line." "Then we better not hit anything," Jun said. "All crew, secure for high-speed maneuvers." Throughout the ship, crew members strapped themselves into their stations. In engineering, Chief Engineer Sun and his team worked frantically to give the engines every bit of power they could. "Confederation fleet is opening fire," Su reported from the weapons station. "Kravak ships returning fire." On the screen, bright beams of energy flashed between the opposing forces. For a moment, it looked like a normal space battle, until the Kravak weapons hit the Confederation ships. The green energy beams passed right through the shields of the frontline vessels, striking their hulls directly. Explosions bloomed across the Confederation ships. "It's just like at Proxima," Da said quietly. "Their shields aren't working. And just like at Proxima, our armor will," Jun said firmly. "Su, prepare all railguns. Target the command ship's weapon emplacements." "All 3 operational railguns ready, Captain," Su confirmed. The Underdog raced toward the battle, its blocky shape speeding past the larger, more elegant Confederation vessels. Some of them were already heavily damaged, their shields useless against the Kravak weapons. "Sir, we're receiving a priority message from the Supremacy," Da reported. "Audio only." "Put it through," Jun ordered. Commander Vex's voice filled the bridge, strained and urgent. "Underdog, return to formation immediately. You are violating direct orders and interfering with battle operations." "Supremacy, this is Captain Kim," Jun replied. "Your shields aren't working against their weapons. We saw this at Proxima. The Underdog's armor can withstand their attacks. We're moving to engage the command ship. Your actions border on treason." "Captain," Vex snapped. "One small ship can it." "With respect, Commander," Jun interrupted, "you need to adjust your tactics. Move your ships into a defensive formation. Focus on evasive maneuvers, not shield strength." There was a pause before Vex responded. "Do what you can, Underdog. But be warned. If we survive this, you'll answer for your insubordination." "Understood, Commander," Jun said. "Underdog out." They were approaching the main battle line now. Ahead, Confederation ships were firing continuously at the Kravak fleet, but their energy weapons seemed to be having little effect on the enemy shields. 90 seconds to weapon range of the command ship," Han reported. "Sir," Su called out, "multiple Kravak vessels are breaking off to intercept us. They've noticed our approach." "They're targeting us," Dai added. "Energy weapons charging." Jun gripped the arms of his command chair. "Evasive pattern delta. Maintain course to the command ship." The Underdog began to twist and turn, its engines straining as Han pushed the ship through a series of sharp maneuvers. Green energy beams from the Kravak ships flashed past, some missing entirely, others grazing the Underdog's hull. "Direct hit to Section 4. Sun reported from engineering. Armor holding at 82% integrity." Another hit. "Port side, Section 2. Someone else called out. The ship shuddered as it took more hits, but it kept moving forward, getting closer to the massive Kravak command ship. "Weapons range in 15 seconds, Su announced, her fingers flying over her console as she locked the railguns onto their targets. "Fire as soon as we're in range," Jun ordered. "Aim for their main weapon emplacements." The Underdog shook violently as another Kravak beam struck it directly amidships. "Armor down to 65%, Sun reported. "We can't take too many more direct hits like that." "We won't need to," Jun said. "We just need to get close enough to." Weapons range achieved. Su cut in, firing railguns 1, 2, and 4. The ship vibrated as the 3 massive electromagnetic launchers fired simultaneously. 3 tungsten rods, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, streaked toward the Kravik command ship. There was no flash of light, no visible beam, just the sudden, catastrophic impact as the rods punched through the enemy vessel's shields and hull. On the main screen, they watched as explosions erupted across the command ship's forward section. Several of its weapon emplacements went dark. Direct hits, Sue reported, excitement in her voice. Their forward weapons are disabled. Again, June ordered. Target their starboard weapons. The railguns fired again, sending 3 more tungsten rods into the massive enemy vessel. More explosions bloomed across its hull. The Kravik ships that had been targeting the Underdog suddenly changed course, moving to protect their damaged command ship. "Sir, we have their attention now," Daz said, his voice tense. "Good," Jun replied. "Han, bring us around for another pass. Sue, target their engines this time." The Underdog banked sharply, its engines flaring as it came about for another attack run. The Kravik ships fired continuously, their green beams scoring hits on the human vessel's armor. "Armor down to 48%, Sun reported. "Captain, we can't take much more of this." "We don't need to," Jun said, pointing at the main screen. "Look." The Confederation fleet was changing formation. The Ardaxian ships were moving into a more defensive posture, focusing less on holding their line and more on evasive tactics. Their energy weapons had adjusted too. Instead of firing directly at the Kravik shields, they were targeting specific points on the enemy hulls. "They're adapting," Daz said with a note of surprise. "That's what humans do best," Jun said. "And now they're learning from us." "Sue, status of railguns." "Ready to fire again, Captain. 6 shots remaining in each gun. Fire when ready. Let's show the Kravik what this joke of a warship can really do." For the next 10 minutes, the battle raged around them. The Underdog darted between Kravik vessels, its railguns punching holes through their defenses. Each shot was carefully aimed at weapons, engines, or command centers. The Kravik tried desperately to destroy the human ship, but its unconventional armor, designed to absorb and disperse energy, continued to protect it even as it was gradually worn down. The tide of battle began to turn. With the Kravik command ship heavily damaged and the Confederation fleet adopting new tactics, the enemy forces began to lose coordination. "Captain," Dag called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the Supremacy." Commander Vex appeared on screen. His uniform was torn and smoke filled the bridge behind him, but his expression was resolute. "Captain Kim," he said, "the Kravik fleet is beginning to withdraw. Their command ship is crippled thanks to your actions." He paused, then added, "The Confederation owes you a debt." "We're just doing our part, Commander," Jun replied. "But we're almost out of ammunition, and our armor won't hold much longer." "Fall back to our lines," Vex ordered. "We'll cover you." As the Underdog turned and headed back toward the Confederation fleet, June looked at the tactical display. The Kravik ships were indeed retreating, their formation broken. The command ship, once the pride of their fleet, drifted helplessly, its engines and most of its weapons destroyed by the Underdog's railguns. "We did it," Sue said quietly. "The battle's not over yet," Jun cautioned, "but we've turned the tide." 2 hours later, the last Kravik ships jumped away from the Ta City system, leaving behind their destroyed vessels and their crippled command ship. The Confederation fleet had suffered heavy losses too. 12 ships destroyed, 21 severely damaged, but they had held the line. The Underdog docked with the Supremacy for emergency repairs. Its hull was scorched and pitted from countless energy weapon hits. 2 of its railguns were completely offline, but it had survived. June stood in the Supremacy's main conference room, facing Commander Vex and the other Confederation fleet captains. He had expected a reprimand for disobeying orders. Instead, Vex approached him and extended his hand. "Captain Kim," he said formally, "your actions today saved this fleet and possibly the Confederation itself." June shook the offered hand. "My crew deserves the credit, Commander. They believed in our ship when no one else did." "The ship you all called a joke," one of the other captains said. "Yes," Vex admitted. "We were wrong." He turned to address the entire room. "The Kravak thought they had found our weakness, our reliance on energy shields and weapons. They never expected to face a vessel that used different technology entirely." "Human technology," Joan added. "Sometimes what looks primitive is just different, and different can be exactly what you need." Later, as June walked through the corridors of the Underdog, inspecting the damage, Admiral Tahoe contacted him. "The Confederation Council has approved immediate construction of 20 more vessels of the Underdog class," the Admiral reported, unable to hide his satisfaction. "And they're requesting that you share all your tactical data for training purposes." "What about Commander Vex?" June asked. "I did disobey his direct orders." "Officially, you experienced navigation errors," Tahoe said with a small smile. "Very unfortunate timing, and very fortunate results." After the communication ended, Jum continued his inspection. Crew members nodded respectfully as he passed. Some even applauded. The ship was damaged, but it would be repaired, stronger than before. The Underdog had proven itself not just to the Confederation, but to all who had doubted humanity's place among the stars. It had demonstrated the unique human talent for adaptation, for finding unexpected solutions, for turning weaknesses into strengths. As he reached the bridge, Jun paused to look at the ship's dedication plaque, which bore the words of an ancient Earth admiral. "A ship is always a reflection of its crew." The Underdog was blocky, asymmetrical, and unconventional. It relied on armor instead of shields and projectiles instead of energy beams. It wasn't sleek or elegant or particularly impressive to look at. But when the moment of truth came, it had done what no other ship could do. It had saved the fleet. It had changed the course of a war. Not bad for a joke.